Good evening, everybody. This is Juan Fernandez live in the KCAL News studios, coming to you with breaking news along with Mike Rogers on the desk. And this is regarding the fate of one of the Menendez brothers. Just moments ago, Erik Menendez was denied parole. This decision could have gone either way. We weren't sure which way it would go. Would he be given the opportunity to be set free after spending an entire day today speaking in court? Well, we now know, according to sources, that he has been denied parole, and our Mike Rogers has been monitoring the situation. Mike, what do you have?
So, Juan, now that the parole hearing is concluded, we are able to get some of the transcripts, and specifically working on transcripts from Commissioner Robert Barton. Robert Barton talks a lot in these transcripts about Erik Menendez's conduct in prison, even going on to say that had his actions been different and he had no violation, had he had no violation since 2013, he believes this result would have been different. He's saying, quote, "We recognize the situation of hopelessness and surviving when you first came to prison," but then goes on to add that he believes the result would be different had Menendez had no violation since 2013. We've talked about some of the violations that Erik Menendez has had. The Commissioner Barton also talks about the cell phone behavior as selfish and a sign of Erik believing the rules don't apply to him, a sign that the ends justify the means, which highlights his dangerousness. Again, this is all from the Commissioner Barton, Robert Barton, from the Board of Parole Hearings for the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. They also in his statement say, quote, "We recognize and understand that many sexual assault victims find it hard to come forward, especially when the perpetrators are family members." But Barton says, notes that victims don't often kill their abusers in such horrific situations. The commissioner also talks about the execution of their mother, Kitty, showing at the time that Erik, he says, was devoid of human compassion. He goes on to acknowledge that he can't put him in his place, but he also says that he legally could have left at the age of 18 and sought shelter with relatives, and maintains he should or could have gone to the police to talk about this abuse with them. Regardless, though, he has denied, or the board has denied, Erik Menendez parole. This is a minimal denial, meaning in 3 years they can come back to the parole board. Now, his attorneys can push for that to happen sooner. Of course, there is the option for Governor Gavin Newsom.
That was my next question, Mike. What happens next? Is this a done deal? But no, they could reapproach this again in 3 years. And what basically hinged on what happened today, this decision, as you were saying, was his behavior behind bars, right? Because they were saying, his attorneys were saying he had gone to school, he had gotten a degree, the brothers had done a lot. But exactly what happened in jail is what hinged the decision, right?
Right. So it's twofold. One, I mean, the parole commissioner definitely talked about his conduct in prison, but also about the crime itself, saying that the murder of his mother showed that there was devoid of emotion, or of human emotion. And that's what one of the things that we had talked about and legal experts had talked about is had only the father been killed, then this would be a different situation. But they killed both of them, as we know. Now, that is one of the things the parole board talked about as well. I want to ask our control room, Mike, if we can get my computer ready, because I want to show you now that, again, that this is over, we can show you a photo of Erik Menendez as he was watching these proceedings today. Remember, this is from the California Department of Corrections. Remember, Erik Menendez was attending these virtually from his prison in San Diego. The Board of Commissioners were in Sacramento, where they are. Of course, Erik was on with his attorneys. The attorneys made statements. Erik made a very lengthy statement. The victims made statements. And remember, or the victims' families, I should say. And remember, Juan, this was supposed to be a quicker trial, and this went on for about 10 hours.
That's right.
As it does. And the commissioner saying, "We certainly did not give this case short shift. We probably spent 4 times more than we do on our usual average here," calling it a tragic case and agreeing that not only 2 people, but 4 people were lost in this family when these murders happened. But then goes on to say 2 things can be true. They can love and forgive you, and you can still be found unsuitable for parole. And that is what the California Department of Corrections parole board has done today for Erik Menendez.
Yeah, and I guess DA Nathan Hochman agrees with the decision tonight, of course. And up next, his brother, Lyle Menendez. And Mike, it seems like they're both being treated separately. They are brothers. They're both implicated in the murder of their parents. But it may be a whole different story for Lyle, perhaps.
It could be, and it'll depend. I mean, there's so much focus on Erik and the use of the cell phone. The commissioner is saying, quote, "The phone," again, in the abstract, he says, "It's easy for the people on the outside to look at that and go, what's the big deal?" But then he goes on to add, that doesn't change the fact that you knew what you were doing and you knew why you were doing it. Goes on to say, you've got a great support network, talking about his family, because as we've talked about, Juan, the family has largely been supportive of the brothers being released from prison, saying, quote, you've got a great support network, but you didn't go to them before you committed these murders, and you didn't go to them before you used the cell phone, referencing that he only wanted that support network. You know, in theory, you would think that that's what he's saying. You only want that support network after you figure out there's kind of a chance here. So there's a lot to this, but this parole commissioner is definitely talking about the crimes and how they went down, as well as what his conduct was in prison, really harping on the cell phone.
Yeah, good arguments on both sides of the case here. Mike, we have our reporter Lauren Posen. She's working the story for us tonight. Lauren, what do you have?
Well, Juan, I have a statement from the family to relay to you. They said in part that we respect the decision. Today's outcome was, of course, disappointing and not what we hoped for, but our belief in Erik remains unwavering, and we know he will take the board's recommendation in stride. It goes on to say that tomorrow we turn our attention to Lyle's hearing, and while it's undoubtedly difficult, we remain cautiously optimistic. That's something they've said continually throughout this entire process, that word cautiously optimistic, and hopeful that the commissioner will see in Lyle what so many others have, a man who has taken responsibility, which, if you remember, the DA has been very adamant about this. He feels the brothers have not taken responsibility, transformed his life, and is ready to come home. You know, Juan, looking ahead to tomorrow, I was talking to a legal expert earlier today, and she actually knew Erik. She was not his counsel, but spoke with him back in 2017 and referred him to his current counsel. And she was saying, looking at this entire parole hearing, that Erik seemed to have some more sympathy than Lyle. So she said that she felt that she would be surprised if the board did not grant him parole because he had so much sympathy. She says Lyle, on the other hand, is a whole different story. And so, of course, we'll have to see what happens tomorrow when he goes before the board. And as you were mentioning, this is an entirely different board that will be handling Lyle tomorrow. It's made up about 3 to 4 different people on this board, but they're grilled. They're grilled about their past, not only about their time in prison, but what led up to the murders and their decision making in that. In fact, I also wanted to let you know too, I was just catching up on some of the notes here from the parole hearing today. Erik was asked, he said, you know, his life changed forever when he killed his mother. And it's something he regrets deeply. But, you know, Juan, and also speaking to other experts, they say, you know, you can't forget the crimes here. And this did go on. This was in trial. It did go before a jury. And the jury, you know, found them guilty of this crime. That's not to say that they can't be changed people, but 2 people at the end of the day are dead here. And that is something that it seems like the parole board definitely weighed heavily here in their decision making.
Indeed, a very emotional day, I'm sure, for sure. And what's interesting, you're saying Erik had a much better chance, Lyle a whole different story. So we're going to see what's going to happen tomorrow. We may see the same situation here for both brothers. Okay, Lauren, thank you very much. And to our Mike Rogers on the desk, thank you as well. We're going to have the very latest for you coming up here on KCAL News at 8 o'clock. The very latest on the parole denied for Erik Menendez and what's next.